I'm going to go out on somewhat of a limb here and say that people that consider themselves to be antinatalists are people that have never truly suffered in an acute sense themselves. And yeah, you might hear that and think, yeah, I've suffered acutely, but hear me out. When I say suffer acutely, I mean have felt an direct threat to their own life in a very immediate sense, and for a protracted period of time, which may not fall under the definition of acute, but because in my sense of what I've experienced in that sense is when I've felt a direct threat towards my life for a protracted period of time, I've identified in myself the desire to live. It's drawn into contrast, into perspective, all of the times where I was in the past thinking about how shit my life was and how I hated my life, and then in that moment seeing that actually that wasn't that bad, I kind of liked it. It was good relative to what I was experiencing in that moment of my survival, my life being threatened directly. Because from what I know about antinatalists, usually they're talking about how things are in the world for other people. In most cases, antinatalists, they're living in a Western country. United States, Australia, some country in the European Union, where things are overall very peaceful and safe, and the worst thing you have to deal with is how fucking prohibitively expensive the items are in the grocery store, and how much your landlord is charging you for your rent. And I've dealt with all of those things too. But I've also directly confronted my own mortality in many instances. And I've realized that it's something that I really value, that I want to perpetuate. And yeah, I know all the rebuttals to this, like it's just something that's innate to our biology. We are a survival machine, therefore we cling to such, irrespective of how abhorrent the circumstances are that we find ourselves in. And there's more than a merit of truth to that, but I suppose what I'm trying to present is that there's more to that. There's something to that. That's what I found for myself, at least. I understand that I'm some organism that's been spawned upon this rock, floating in space, going by this atheistic, nihilistic perspective, right? I'm nothing. I'm as good as a worm. I'm as good of a piece of shit sitting on the street. And it's only my biological priming that makes me think that I'm any different than that. But even so, when I'm in such a situation where I feel like, okay, this is it, I could very easily die at any second, I feel like I'm more than a piece of shit on the street. And I look back in my very recent past at my memories and I think, okay, this is good. This was something that I want to persist in. I like this. I like being a piece of shit on the street. Although, of course, in my own imaginings, I feel like I'm very much more than a piece of shit on the street. I have a sense that there's something more occurring here than a piece of shit on the street, a worm in the dirt, a dog roaming through the woods. I'm simultaneously that and simultaneously something that's beyond that. In a sense, antinatalism is something of a luxury that's afforded to people that have a greater quantity of time and leisure afforded to them than the majority of people on this earth. People removed from the immediacy of the survival scenario. This very basic level of existence wherein people are seeking shelter, sustenance, and society. When I say these things, I'm very conflicted when I say them, because I very much understand the antinatalist position, but I'm trying to... Always what I've done, I've tried to play devil's advocate, like, whenever I'm very sure of something, I like to try and... I'm a little suspicious of that, right? Whenever I'm very sure of something, I'm very suspicious of it, because it's like... Many people, the majority of people, maybe all people in life, they feel something, they think something, and they believe that that is the truth. So when that thing arises in myself of certainty, that sensation of certainty, I'm like, what is this? Am I really sure about that? Because I see a lot of people around me being very certain of a lot of fucked up shit. So maybe I'm also fucked up. And maybe that is what I am. I'm fucked up, I'm a fallible produce of this rock within which we reside. But part of me won't accept that, because the part of me that accepts that is the part of me that suffers a great deal, I think of myself as nothing, no one, and the result of that is that I suffer immensely. I live in a world where the majority of people don't subscribe to such beliefs, and I'm sort of left behind, I'm an outcast. And I was alright with that for a while, but life is more than a while. It's quite a long while, at least in terms of how we as humans perceive time. It's quite a long while to reside in these sensations of outcastedness and all of the shame and ignominy that is correspondent with such. It all attends that state. Negativity inflicted upon oneself from outsiders. I'm kind of spitballing here, right? Ultimately, is what I'm doing. I'm not presenting anything as fact, although it might seem as such. That's all I've been doing with my whole entire channel, just spitballing, you know? I say what's on my mind. And, it's difficult, really, you know? You're here, you're a human, and you experience things. And for myself, certain things I've experienced have very much driven me towards the direction of living. Because as far as I can see, that's all there is. At least for me, in this current incarnation. Yeah, there might be some reincarnation, blah blah blah, but right now, no. It doesn't seem like that's gonna happen. Like, I'm not gonna persist with this current format of identity into some other life. It will be something else, and I'll have no memory of this life. It will just be as if I was born anew, a blank slate, respawned. And in that sense, entertaining that, it's like, well, then this life is all I have right now. That's all that really matters. And irrespective of what I think about life, how life is, if I don't play by the rules, I'm going to suffer immensely. Very much immensely, you know? I can't win this game by rebelling against it. I'm going to be fucked in the arse by all of the people around me and by the thoughts they put in my head. So de facto, I'm going to be fucked by myself also. In a small way, you know. Admittedly, I wasn't entirely listening to the things people told to me about me, but they told them to me, and so those things that they told me about me were in my head, and so a little bit of the tip of that dick penetrated my asshole. And yeah, I mean, I guess everything I'm saying here about my experience sort of validates the antinatalist perspective, right? There's no need to create a need. Why create this beast, this monster of a human being? This confliction, this confusion. In most cases, though, that's not what emanates from the creation of humans. What mostly is created is something that's quite alright, you know. There is something that's very much blind and complicit with the world within which it finds itself. It doesn't question much. It adheres to the conditions within which it's a part of. Maybe once every 20 or more pertinently 40 years, by which I mean the midlife crisis, one sets himself aside and thinks, oh my god, how have I lived my life? But it's not in a deep existential sense that one questions these things. It's more so in a societal sense, right? Very much in this worldly sense that one questions these things. And then thereby reorients themselves to something that will be more profitable to them in this world. You know, the man that plays by the rules of society their whole life, going to school, going to university, being a good boy, and realizes after some 20 years that their career isn't really giving them any happiness, which is what they were promised, and then pursuing more so carnal desires instead, you know? Fucking some 20-year-old girls, getting a fast sports car, traveling around, all of this shit, which is nonsense. That won't provide them real lasting happiness either, but maybe in a temporary sense it will. It's just silliness, ultimately. And it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about stepping even further back and looking at the situation within which we find ourselves, which is what I've always been talking about. And I don't really know what I'm talking about now. See these, I suppose, as the candid confessions of someone endowed, with a surplus of consciousness that they have no real right being endowed with. Yeah, see it as that, I suppose. Funny, you know, like I came in here with being all hot, you know, trying to present some accusations, and kind of refuted myself, my own accusations in the process. Because every time I start talking, I start thinking, I kind of arrive at the same point, which is like this blank awareness. Right now I'm in some abandoned resort town in Bulgaria, and I'm in some apartment complex with a dry pool. I'm sitting right next to this dry pool, looking at all these empty apartments around me, and I just see this blankness, this blank state, these empty buildings, the night sky full of stars, this empty pool, and that's what I see. I don't attribute anything to it, I just see what I see. And I talked about that before, like in recordings, just the truest thing I could say about reality. The reality we find ourselves in is, but more appropriately, the reality I find myself within. The truest thing I could say about it is nothing. And just be silent. Because everything else that I say about it is untrue. Because how I found it, how I perceived it, was silent. And so should everything else that I say about it be also silent.